In this video, we're going to take a look at how we show place value with our powers of 10. Let's start by reviewing some vocabulary. When you're given a number and it's written like a normal number would be, we call that standard form. That just means it's a number, it's how we always write it and how we read it, 3,456. Expanded form means when you're really stretching the numbers apart to show every single piece of place value. So for example, that 3 is really a 3,000. The 4 is really a 400. The 5, since it's in the tens place, is really worth 50. And the 6 is in the ones place, so it's worth 6. So all expanded form means is that you're taking a number and you're really showing what each place value is and what every number represents. Take the number 5,867, for example. If I want to move it out of standard form into expanded form, I'm saying that that 5 is in my thousands place, so it's really worth 5,000. The 8 is in my hundreds, so it's worth 800. The 6 is really a 60, and the 7 is a 7. There's other ways I can show this. For example, I can say that instead of 5,000, it's really like I have 5 times 1,000. And I put that in parentheses because it's a group, so I stick them together. Plus, instead of 800, I could say 8 times 100 because that'll give me my 800. Then the 6 is like 6 times 10. And then my 7 is really just a 7 times 1. So it's another way to show place value. Say my 5 is in my thousands place, my 8 is in my hundreds place, the 6 is in the tens place, and the 7 is in the ones place. You can also show this using exponents. So for example, instead of saying 5 times 1,000, I can say 5 times 10 to the third, because 10 to the third is the same thing as writing 1,000. So it's a quicker way of writing our expanded form. And then 8 times 10 to the second, because 10 to the second is 100, plus 6 times 10 to the first, since 10 to the first is 10. And last but not least, I can do 7 times 10 to the 0, because anything to the 0 power is going to give me 1. So that's my ones place. So using expanded form with exponents is just another way to show place value. If I needed to place this number into expanded form, I would think to myself, well, the 6 right there, that 6 is in my thousands place. So that means there's 3 place values after it. So when I write it as expanded form, I can do 6 times 10 to the third, because that 10 to the third shows me that there's 3 place values after the number, 1, 2, 3 after the number. Then that 3, I can say 3 times 10 to the second, because there's 2 place values after the 3, plus 2 times 10 to the first, plus 9 times 10 to the 0. And I keep placing these numbers in the parentheses because that means they're grouped together. I want to make sure I keep my place values separated, so I always group them together using parentheses. When I put 47,609 in expanded form, I start the same way. 4 times 10 to the fourth, because that's my 10,000s place, plus 7 times 10 to the third, plus 6 times 10 to the second, and then I don't have anything in my tens place, so I don't need to write anything times 10 to the first. I just skip over it and go to my next place value, which is my ones place, and write plus 9 times 10 to the 0. So here, if you look, I don't actually have a 10 to the 1 between these two, and that's okay. If you have a 0, you don't need to write that down. I can also take expanded form and go back into standard form using the same strategies. If I have 3 times 10 to the third, I know that's really like a 3,000. So I can write a 3 to start with for my thousands place. Now 6 times 10 to the second, that's like a 600. So I can place a 6 in my hundreds place. 4 times 10 to the first is like 40. And then 7 times 10 to the 0 is just 7, because that's my ones place. So it's 3,647. With this problem, moving back into standard form, 9 times 10 to the second is 900. And 5 times 10 to the 0 is just 5. So I have to be really careful here. If I wrote it like this, That would not be correct because it's not 95, it should be 900. This is 900, 10 to the second, plus 5 times 10 to the 0 is just 5. So when I put it together, it's 905. So I have to make sure that I place a 0 if I have a place value that's empty to hold that spot so that the 9 still is worth 900. Sometimes it's not always written in order. Now when you are writing your answers in expanded form, you should always be writing the powers in order. So if I had done this correctly, it'd be 3, 2, 1, 0. But instead it's 10 to the 0, 10 to the third, 10 to the first. So what I find really helpful with problems like this is to actually write down what they're worth. So 8 times 10 to the 0 is 8. 5 times 10 to the third is 5,000. 6 times 10 to the first is 60. And 7 times 10 to the second is 700. So now that I have it all written out, it's easier for me to put it in the order I need. So 5,768. So if you need to write out what they're worth, that's a great strategy before you write it in your standard form.